everyone, this is Jose Baeza here with eFunding Experts, and today we have Altan, Director of Commercial Lending with PPG Financial and founder of Awesome Capital Cannabis Funding. So welcome, Altan.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks for having me. What a cool office you guys have here. I mean, look at the studio. It's kind of cool to be in the middle of a little banking office and also have this cool studio you guys put together. I appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, you know, it's all about the money, and we always have to have money here, presence in the office. And today, I'm really glad that we got a chance to have you here so you can share a little bit more about what you do and cannabis funding, because I know that is one of our biggest types of funding options out there right now, and you know, you're the number one expert when it comes to explaining how it works.
Well, that's too kind, Jose. And you know, I appreciate it because we work a lot on the commercial lending. You know, you guys have some good product, especially for entrepreneurs, startup groups, and what we've been doing, it's not just about having access to funding in the cannabis, it's making sure people know the right products. There is funding out there, but you're going to give away your firstborn and half your company to get it. And my goal is to make companies realize the resources that they have so that they can actually be treated like a normal business. It's one of the only essential companies out there. I mean, in Illinois alone, they made $1 billion in revenue.
Right.
You're telling me you can't even get a line of credit?
So that's incredible. Yeah, because I've gone across a lot of those.
Yeah, and then that's the goal of it, is to really show people the options and find out what is possible for them. And there's a lot of things that are possible.
Okay. Well, why don't we start off, because personally I'm going to approach this from a perspective of someone that is not too familiar with cannabis, right? So back in the day when not many people knew about cannabis funding or even just cannabis in general, there were a lot of questions like, how is this legal? How come lending is not really out there? And if I go to my bank and let's just say I want to start a cannabis company, they're going to go ahead and deny me. So what makes it different from you and a bank, and is this legal?
Well, it is legal, especially in the states that have legalized it both medically and recreationally. Obviously, every state has their own laws, so make sure you have someone. If you don't, contact me. I'll put you into someone that will take care of you. But that's foremost the most important, because you have access to a great opportunity. Don't blow it because you didn't follow the steps that are right there in a blueprint for you, right? But as far as the stipulation, the real issue is it's not federally legalized. So the fear that the feds can come in and seize everything is always there, which is why if you're a federally chartered bank, it makes it hard, because you might be operating in Illinois where it's legal, but if you also have bank branches in Wisconsin and all these unlegal states, kind of breaking your charter there. So it's difficult, and that's where the whole cashless payment solutions come as well. But think about collateral, right? If you're in the cannabis industry and I'm lending against receivables, if you default, I can't take your cannabis as as collateral because I don't have a license. So think about that aspect. And if you show someone that you have assets and revenues, there are options out there, even if you don't right now for startup.
Okay. So does that mean that it makes it a little bit more expensive than usual? Because I know you mentioned like going towards the bank. But if I had an idea, let's say for a lot of viewers right now that do have that urge, that they are looking for funding to go ahead and either start or grow cannabis, and they are in this legal situations, what's one of the first steps that they need to do in order for them to make sure that they're following the rules?
Well, they have to take it seriously. I mean, if you look at Michigan or Oklahoma, I kind of consider them the emerging wild west states, because lots of people, there's like 2,500 licenses in Oklahoma, right? So you have to be serious about it. You have to have your ideas together, your business plan. You have to be willing to take a risk using your own personal financial statement as well, especially if it's a startup, right? How is someone going to take a chance on you to give you money to start your dispensary if you're not willing to take a chance on yourself? Meaning no one's going to fund your dreams. There's funding opportunities and there's funding dreams. And
do you think that, and this is from my perspective, do you think that because it is cannabis and it has been more, back in the day, people would not take cannabis so serious. They would think it's a joke, or maybe like, oh, you're just, one of those people that get high on the weekends. But do you think that because of the way that maybe perception is being changed right now in the marketplace, where it's $1 billion industry, now people are taking it more serious, and if you're looking to start a business in cannabis, you got to look presentable, especially when it comes to lending. You have to know your numbers. You have to know you have to have your documents in place. You have to make sure that you're following all the rules when it comes to the laws. What are some of the? Where can they get started? How do they check that from your perspective? Also, just so that they can also come to you, or they can come with their best foot forward.
Well, that's a good question, and you have to really think about what stage you're at, right? A lot of these groups, if you're getting started in it, you have to take it seriously. Like I said, it's just like any other business. Right. It's not a garage operation anymore. In fact, you get in trouble for doing that, and if you do it out in the open now, you're fine. It's kind of like a role reversal there, right? But you have to play the game, because they're going to use any reason not to give you the funding. And if you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, and you have the right people working with you, well, then you can get the cannabis funding. And it starts off with the plan, right? Make sure that for instance, if you're a dispensary, you have your license in place, you have everything in order, and you have, maybe purchase orders in hand as far as what you're going to need. Be as legitimate as possible, like a normal business would. If you're opening up a store, you have to have all your invoices there. You have to have your processes there. You have to have the right people in place so that you look like a normal business. And that's kind of where this opportunity gave me, because there were a lot of people, and the way it's evolved is that people lend differently now. Before, they would lend you money 28% maybe and take some equity in your company. Now people are saying, whoa, this industry is booming. They did $1 billion. Maybe we should lend at it. Maybe we should be a little bit more competitive and give them 10%, or some of your products are at 7-8%, So it's changing a lot.
Absolutely. And where does this money come from? Because, we talked about the difference between going with us or going with the federal backed bank, right? So does that mean that some of these banks, or some of the money that we're lending for cannabis, is coming from hedge funds, private individuals? Where is it coming from?
The short answer is all the above. It depends on the type of loan. There's really 4 categories, maybe 5 that I work with, and maybe I said 5 just because my thumb was out too, but really I work with 4 categories, right? 3 of them are for operating companies, and they all come from different sources, right? Mainly traditional banks, if it's asset-based, meaning if it's equipment financing, real estate financing. Depending on how the company's set up, they can provide that directly. For instance, some companies in the cannabis industry, they have one entity that owns the real estate, right? And then they do kind of like a net lease back to the operating business. So their operating cannabis company is the tenant of their real estate company, right? So they're separating them because one is cannabis and one is not. Some lenders are willing to lend up to that. Equipment, I mean, luckily the equipment that they're using, the extraction equipment, the packaging, all that, it's multi-$100,000 equipment that's actually good, right? So there's no problem getting lending on that. I can come, get people lending on that all day. The difficulty where the private money comes in is when it's based off of revenues, right? Because that's where it comes tricky, right? No one can lend you based off of your company and then say, hey, I'm going to take all your cannabis if you default, because you can't do that, right? Nor do you want to go and sell it on the secondary market. So that's where the private money comes in, when they say, okay, this person is doing $200,000 a month. We can give them $500,000 over an 18-month period, and maybe it'll be a percentage or 2 a month, right? Something like that. And that's where you're getting into the hedge funds and the private money. Got it. So in order for them to really get access to as much money as they can qualify for, they really need to have some skin in the game already. Something, whether it be something tangible that we can back up the money that we're giving them. Does that sound about right? That, or it's somewhat performance based. There are people that'll take chance, but let me be clear. There's 2 different things. What I try to do is help companies not give away equity. Right?
Got it.
There's people that'll do these type of deals and take more risk on them, but they're going to want some sort of equity or options in the future and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
I'm trying to give the mom and pops the chance that, okay, we need $1 million. Do I have to give 49% of that away just to get that?
Right.
Well, no. You do $300,000 a month. You have $500,000 in equipment that maybe we can get $200,000 on. You have real estate that you own because you're a cash business and have been buying everything yourself. Luckily, that's the case. A lot of these groups have only been able to get cash, so they've been using that to buy their buildings, and now their buildings are free and clear. Now their assets are free and clear. Unfortunately, they also don't have any track record because of that.
Of course. Now, what are some of the minimum criteria that you would say, if we can just put them on in a list,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that they need to have? What's the checklist that they need to have before they come to us?
Well, first and foremost, there's two categories, right?
Right.
The checklist on the operating companies and the revenue base and stuff, you have to be doing at least 10,000 in revenues a month.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Right.
Not too bad. You can start doing that. And then you can get into other areas where you can start funding yourself, like if we get them set up on a cashless payment system or credit card processing, because now there's lenders that'll lend 150% of that, and they know they can just take their payment right out of that, right? So it's relieving some of that risk. On the other side, it really depends, because the people that aren't doing anything right now and just, hey, that dispensary is for sale, I'm going to buy it with someone else's money, and I have no money and no income and bad credit, you're still going to be sitting on the couch. You're not going to be able to get funded. You have to have some kind of proactive standpoint. So, for instance, if I am working somewhere making $60,000 a year and I have good credit and there's an opportunity for me to get into this green rush and buy a dispensary or a cultivation and get a license, I can do that, because now there's people that'll lend based off of that. And not only that, they'll give me $150,000, $200,000, and they'll give me reasonable terms, maybe 3 to 8% like your product. You know, that's something that's perfect for startups, especially if you're willing to spend the game. So one, you have to be willing to put skin in the game yourself, whether it's your personal guarantees or your money. And two, you have to be set up as an actual business. No one's funding dreams.
Right, of course. And that really, that goes back to what you mentioned about them being serious about it. And, you know, one of the biggest things is that when they go through the process, how long does it normally take? I personally, from my perspective, of course, I would say it's all based on the individual and how organized they are. But is cannabis funding any different?
Depends on what you're using. You know, if you're using real estate, it's going to take you 2 to 3 weeks minimum, just because it's real estate, right? You have to go through the process. But I would say, one, it's always the best impression to have everything ready, right? The stigma out there, and this is kind of what I work with a lot of companies out there, they're changing, but I want to make a company in the cannabis industry look, feel, operate, and even smell like a normal business. It's going to smell a little bit better, but you know, I want it to have that feel, so that when a banker comes in, they say, okay, this looks like something I can understand. They look at your documents and their financial, okay. They're not going to understand a back room full of trash bags with cash in them, right? They're not going to understand that. They're not going to lend against that. But they will lend against someone that has a nice process in place, that has, you know, something that's all organized. So if you go somewhere, expect them to have documents and have that ready. And if you don't have a cannabis-friendly accountant, reach out to someone and get that, because it is a different accountant that's needed.
Right. Okay. So having said that, with the accountant, is that something that we can always recommend? Do we have some people on?
Oh, I have a long list depending on where they are and what they need. The difference is, especially if you're a smaller operation, right? There's about 3 additional things, fraud prevention, and, you know, all these different security measures that they put in there that you are going to need someone to do. And your typical CPA may or may not know that. But, you know, I have a number of people, because I want the documents I submit to look good at the bank, so that they're not questioning anything. You know how funding is. The less questions they ask, the quicker it is, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that if you're listening and viewing this particular video, and whether you know someone that needs this, or maybe you are curious about wanting to get started, you know, definitely look at everything that's available and do your due diligence, right? If you don't have the answers, then again, just reach out. Feel free to reach out. We'd be glad to go ahead and answer any questions that you may have. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to answer any questions as well. And we would love to do some more videos as well, to get a chance to really answer those questions that you have and that you're going through. But do you have any success stories recently, Altan? Because I know, like, it's 2021, things are changing, people are being more open about it. You know, we're located here near Schaumburg in Illinois, and there are cannabis stores popping up everywhere.
Absolutely.
So it's a beautiful thing, because it's not really a new industry. I think it's more open. What are some of the things that you think that has changed, that has caused this to happen?
Well, you know, I think that it's just the growth of the industry. I mean, I work downtown. The commercial branch that I work with, PPG Finance, is right down the street as well. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of the banks on the commercial side realizing that there are options and more solutions coming out there, like the credit card processing, like the security measures of the cashless payment systems that make it more reasonable. So if you're looking at these people that want to get into it, what do you see on the news? Well, besides all the GameStop and AMC and crypto stuff, what you do see, though, is cannabis next, right? After all that.
Yes.
So people want to know how to get into that industry, whether it's investing. There's investment platforms that kind of work like crowdfunding, but those take a lot of time, right? So now people are trying to figure out, how do I get my money into these banks? And right now they might be getting 6%, on their returns, but they can easily get 10% if they do it, and that's what it's all about.
It's about creativity, and it's about figuring out what do we need to do in order to get the deal done. The deal could be anywhere from, like you said, it could be done through either a credit card processing, or it could be through a personal investment. And I think that's one of the good things, is that there's a solution for every type of problem. And again, if you do have an issue in getting access to funding, reach out, because at the end of the day, you will not know the answer unless you go out looking for it.
And that's another thing too. Now is not the time to be afraid or shy. The shy people get left in the dark, but the people that just take that chance, get uncomfortable and ask someone, one of two things are going to happen. Especially if you ask me, I'm going to either say, yes, I can help you and show you what we can do, or I'm going to refer you to someone I know can help you.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure other people, I know you're like that.
Absolutely.
I know everyone else we work with like that. So don't be afraid to reach out, because maybe you have to take another step, but don't you want to do the work yourself anyways?
Yes, yes indeed. So you already talked about some of the documents that we're going to need, right? Let's just say that somebody's barely starting. They currently have, let's say they have a small operation. They have their documents, and they have some of their tax returns ready, but it's a mom and pop store, and they want to grow. And for those type of people, when they're reaching out to you, what is the first thing that you want to go ahead and do? You encourage them to look for an investor already, or is that something that we can also help them in getting? Do we have those connections?
We do have investor connections, but if it's someone that's operating, my first goal, especially if it's a mom and pop, is to see how I can get them financing without giving their company away. I'm not saying investing is not a bad option. Investment's a good option, but it's got to make sense, right? If you can get $50,000 using your own company, and you know that,
or uncollateralized, like in some of the cases that we've done.
Exactly. You're working on a couple of mine right now that are for cultivators that need equipment and working capital, and they can do that. But it's really a matter of, what are they going to do? So if I can get someone $50,000 based off of their revenues now, and they don't have to give up half their company for that, well,
and I have a question with that, because you mentioned to me that it's $10,000 minimum, right? What's kind of like the math behind it, where if somebody's making $10,000 a month, which is very easy to do, believe it or not, especially in the cannabis industry, they're doing gross. Is that is gross, or is that net?
Well, it's tricky, right? That's kind of more of a qualifying factor. You're not going to get too much. You're probably going to get 10 to 20,000, right? But if you're a small operation, they'll grow with you, right? It's kind of more of a qualifying factor. The rule of thumb on that, on the revenue side, is if you're doing, let's say, 100,000 a month, there's people that'll give you anywhere from 150% to 300% of that as a line of credit, quasi line of credit. You have to kind of re-up it every quarter, because it's a different type of process because it's cannabis, but it's similar to a line of credit, and that might benefit you more anyways, because maybe you need 100,000 now, but a quarter after now, after 2 crops, you might need 300,000, and so on and so forth, right? Now, if you're established in that same situation and they want to acquire another dispensary that's operating, now you have something else that you can leverage. But the goal is, regardless if it's small, start building up that relationship, showing them that this is it, or getting it into a process that's on paper. Because if I show it to a bank and it's your own Excel sheet over the last 5 years because you've been doing cash, they're not going to want to see that. They're going to want to see statements, and it's like we said, think about it as a normal business.
And they also want to make sure that you have an accountant, because if anything goes wrong, God forbid, they're going to go after you, and there's a lot more issues. It's like it's like driving your own semi truck. You still have to go through the process. It's a little bit more challenging than just getting into a car and driving.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I think right now a lot of people are very curious, because I've been getting so many different calls, and do you do cannabis funding? And the answer is yes, we do, but there's a lot of qualifications that goes into it, because at the end of the day, we're not just selling peanuts here. This is a real business. This is funding that you do have to pay back. There's still risk involved. And you may not have to give a portion of that money back, or a portion of that, what do you call it, like the piece of the company, but you still have to pay it back. You still have to, and you have to have your numbers right, because again, I think we're going through a great line, right, where it's legal, but it's getting up there.
It's state by state.
State by state.
Yeah, because every state has their own program. Like, for instance, there's only 40 licenses right now in Illinois. I mean, they just announced that they're taking cultivation license. There's 75 that are waiting, but Oklahoma, there's 2,500. You can go get a license fairly quickly. I know people from Illinois that went to Michigan, and they have their license now. So it's different, but it's more competitive as well, right? So you're gonna have to think about that. But it's just like any other business. If I wanted to start a company and I had this whole great plan, if I'm not backing it, no one else is gonna back it, right? So just think about that. No one's gonna give out handouts. You have to make it make sense, especially now that there's everyone and their kids and now their mothers and aunts all getting into the same business.
How many years, how long do they have to be in operation in order for them to start at least getting qualified, or the minimum requirements?
6 months.
So
6 months is pretty good. I mean, that's on the revenue generating side. The other side, it's really about having the support. I mean, some of the products that we work with, including yours, I mean, your product, the partnership that we have, that's a go-to, because if someone's saying, hey, look, I believe in this business and I'm going to put my personal guarantee on it, and I have, I've been working hard and I have good credit, we're going to let you start that business.
That makes
Whether
sense.
it's $50,000 or $200,000, you're not going to get $1 million. You're not going to get $500,000. You're going to get that push out the door to get you started, and then 3 months later, we're going to work with you to get you more. But you have to take that chance, right? There's so many people out there that are willing to do that job and do everything you want them to. You have to be that person.
That makes sense. So you guys, we are listening to a lot of great information. We're doing this video because we've been getting so many calls, so many requests for cannabis funding. And one of the biggest things that I learned is that we want to go ahead and ask a lot of questions to the right people. That's why we have Altan here. That's why I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to go ahead and reach out. Let us know what kind of questions you have. Feel free to contact us. And Altan, what's a good way for them to reach out to you as well?
Well, they can. I'll have my link below. But the website for the cannabis consulting, that's www.awesome.capital.com. Awesome Capital, it's ALLSOME Capital. That stands for All of Us Have Dreams, Some of Us Pursue Them. Awesome, that's who we are, the Awesome Group LLC. And then as far as financing, as I mentioned, I'm the Director of Commercial Finance for PPG Finance, and that is Altan, ALTAN, at ppgfinance.com. We'll fund all your commercial needs. We really will. I mean, whether it's cannabis or, like we were talking earlier, I mean, we even have programs for people that want to flip a house for the first time.
Absolutely.
We want opportunities for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. So you guys want to reach out, definitely. We have Altan now as part of our team, and we're doing cannabis funding because it's a need. And go ahead and reach out. There's going to be a link below. And if you have any questions, you can also reach me directly at my email. It's getmoney@efundingexperts.com, or my website is www.efundingexperts.com. And feel free to reach out, and I'm here to connect. For those of you guys that have any questions, just go ahead and send us an email, either to Altan or myself, and we are very happy to help you guys out and help you fund your dreams.
And that's great, Jose, because I just realized that might be the only 2 emails they need, because between the two of us, pretty sure we cover every funding option out there, right?
Absolutely. If you guys have an idea for a startup company, if you guys have an idea for real estate investment, we do hard money lending, we do private money lending, both uncollateralized and collateralized, and we have an abundance of resources, both private and also very public, with larger lenders that we partnered up with.
So it's been a pleasure being on your show today.
Yes, thank you so much, Altan, and thank you guys, and we'll be doing much more videos. Looking forward to working with you guys. I'll talk to you guys soon. This is Jose Baeza and
Altan Erdemir.
absolutely.